My wife sobbed. "I'm having a baby, just not yours. But you'll still provide, right?" I asked, "You're saying this clearly?" She said yes. So I opened my laptop, turned it toward her, and hit play. What she heard in that recording left her completely frozen. I'm 35 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I'd been married for 7 years to someone I genuinely believed was my partner in every sense of the word. We met in college, dated for 3 years before getting engaged, and built what I thought was a solid life together. We owned a modest house in the suburbs, had 2 cars paid off, and were finally at that comfortable place financially where we weren't living paycheck to paycheck anymore. We'd talked about kids for years, but she always said she wanted to wait until we were more stable, until her career was more established, until we'd traveled more. I respected that. I never pushed. Looking back now, I realize how many small things I ignored. How many late nights at the office I accepted without question. How many times she'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, and I'd just figured she'd been in a crowded elevator or at a work meeting. How her phone suddenly had a passcode when it never had before, and when I asked about it casually, she said it was for security because someone at her gym had their purse stolen. It all made sense at the time. That's the thing about trusting someone completely. You don't look for reasons not to. The night everything fell apart started like any other Wednesday. I'd gotten home from work around 6, changed out of my work clothes, and was in the kitchen starting dinner. She usually got home around 7 on Wednesdays, sometimes later if she had dinner with her work friends. I was browning some chicken when I heard her car pull into the driveway. The garage door opened, closed. I heard her heels on the tile floor of the mudroom. Then she appeared in the kitchen doorway. She looked pale. Not sick pale, but drained. Like someone had pulled a plug and let all the color run out of her face. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and I could tell immediately she'd been crying. My first thought was that someone had died. Her mom had been dealing with some health issues lately, and I figured maybe she'd gotten bad news. "Hey," I said, putting down the spatula and moving toward her. "What's wrong? Is your mom okay?" She didn't answer right away. She just stood there, purse still over her shoulder, staring at me like she was looking at a stranger. Then she dropped the purse on the floor and burst into tears. Not delicate crying, full, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I rushed over and tried to put my arms around her, but she stepped back, holding up one hand to keep me away. "Don't," she managed to say between sobs. "Just don't." I froze. "What's going on? You're scaring me." She walked past me into the living room and collapsed onto the couch. I followed, my mind racing through every worst-case scenario I could imagine. I sat down in the chair across from her, giving her space since she clearly didn't want me close. She cried for what felt like 10 minutes, but was probably closer to 3 or 4. Finally, she wiped her eyes with the backs of her hands and looked up at me. What she said next didn't even sound real. "I'm pregnant." For about half a second, I felt pure joy. We'd been talking about trying soon, and even though this wasn't planned, my immediate reaction was excitement. But then I saw her face. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't happy. She looked terrified. "Okay," I said slowly. It's unexpected, but we've talked about wanting kids. Are you not happy about it?" She started crying again, harder this time. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand." She looked down at her hands, twisted her wedding ring around her finger 3 times. I counted. Then she said it. "It's not yours." I honestly didn't process it at first. The words didn't make sense in the order she'd put them in. It's not yours. Not yours. Not mine. I actually laughed, this short, confused bark of a laugh. "What do you mean it's not mine?" She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not just guilt, not just fear. Something calculating. Something that was measuring me, figuring out her next move. "I've been seeing someone," she said quietly. "For about 8 months. We've been careful, but I guess not careful enough. 8 months. 8 months while I'd been coming home to her every night, sleeping next to her, making plans for our future. 8 months of lies. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach and couldn't catch my breath. Who? I managed to ask. It doesn't matter who. It matters to me. She shook her head. Someone from work. That's all you need to know. I stood up. I had to move. I couldn't just sit there. I paced to the window, back to the chair, to the window again. How far along are you? Almost 3 months. 3 months. I tried to think back to 3 months ago. What had been happening then? We'd gone to her company's summer barbecue. We'd spent a weekend at that bed and breakfast in the mountains. We'd had friends over for a game night. All of that while she was sleeping with someone else. Are you sure it's not mine? I asked, and even as I said it, I knew how pathetic it sounded. You and I haven't been together like that in almost 5 months, she said quietly. You know that. She was right. I did know that. She'd been pulling away physically for months, always too tired, too stressed, had a headache, had an early meeting. I'd tried to talk to her about it a few times, asked if something was wrong, if she was okay. She'd always had an excuse, always promised we'd work on it, and I'd always believed her. So you're telling me, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, that you've been cheating on me for 8 months. You're pregnant with another man's baby, and you're telling me this why? Guilt? Because you need to come clean before it becomes obvious? I don't know what to do, she sobbed. I don't know what I want. What you want, I repeated. What you want. I love you, she said, looking up at me. I do love you. This was just... It was a mistake. It got out of hand. But we have a life together. We have a home. I don't want to throw that all away. I stared at her. You don't want to throw it away? You already threw it away 8 months ago. Please, she said, standing up and moving toward me. Please, just listen. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But we can work through this. People do. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Fix this, I repeated flatly. You're pregnant with another man's baby, and you want to fix this. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, I want to fix this. I want us. And what about the baby? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. I don't know if I want to keep it. But if I do, I need to know you'll still be here, that you'll still provide for us. For me. I actually took a step back. You're asking if I'll raise another man's child? Support you while you're carrying his baby? I'm asking if you still love me, she said. If our marriage still means something to you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The audacity of it, the sheer entitlement. She'd betrayed me in the worst possible way, was carrying the proof of that betrayal inside her, and was now asking me to sign up to pay for it all while she figured out what she wanted. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You cheated on me for 8 months, you got pregnant, and now you're asking me if I'll still provide for you? Still play husband while you carry another man's child? When you put it like that, it sounds terrible, she said. How else should I put it? She straightened her shoulders, and I saw that calculating look come back into her eyes. I'm just being practical. We have a mortgage, bills, I can't do this alone, and legally, you have responsibilities. We're married. Responsibilities, I repeated. Yes, you have to provide for your wife. That's what marriage means. Something in me went very still and very cold. Say that again. Say it clearly. Tell me exactly what you're asking me. She must have thought I was considering it. Maybe she thought I was so weak, so beaten down by 7 years of being with her, that I'd just accept it. She looked me right in the eyes and said, word for word, I'm having a baby. It's not yours, but you'll still provide for me, right? For us? Because we're married, and that's what you're supposed to do. I nodded slowly. You're saying this clearly? You're telling me that you expect me, after everything you've done, to stay married to you, support you financially, and raise another man's child? Yes, she said. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I need from you. I walked out of the living room without another word. She called after me, but I ignored her. I went to my home office, a small room off the hallway that I used for work and personal stuff. I grabbed my laptop off the desk and came back to the living room. She was standing now, watching me with a confused expression. I sat down, opened the laptop, clicked on a folder I'd labeled insurance documents, then on a file inside it. I turned the screen toward her and hit play. Her own voice filled the room. No, he has no idea. I told you he's completely clueless. He actually believed me when I said I was working late all those nights. A male voice, laughing. What are you going to do when he finds out? He won't. And even if he does, what's he going to do? Divorce me? Good luck with that. This house is in both our names. I'm entitled to half of everything. More than half, probably, since I've been the main breadwinner for the past 3 years. What about the money in his investment accounts? Joint accounts, baby. Joint accounts. I've been moving money around slowly. He never checks the statements. By the time he figures anything out, if he ever does, I'll have enough tucked away that I'll be fine either way. You're cold, you know that? Her laugh. I'm practical. There's a difference. The recording went on. 3 minutes of her and this man discussing me like I was a mark, a target, someone to be used and discarded, talking about how I was comfortable and stable, but boring, how she needed excitement, how I was a safe backup plan while she explored her options, how if she did get pregnant, whether it was his or mine, she'd figure out how to make it work financially, regardless. I watched her face as she listened. The color drained out of it completely. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. She reached out for the back of the couch to steady herself. When the recording ended, I closed the laptop. Where did you get that? She whispered. Does it matter? I asked calmly. That's illegal. You can't record people without their permission. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording. That would be me. See, you made that phone call from our house phone 3 weeks ago. The one that's connected to our joint landline service. The one that I, as a joint account holder, have every legal right to monitor. That was a lie, but she didn't know that. The truth was worse for her, and I'd get to that. You were recording our phone? Her voice was shrill now. Not the phone, I said. You. See, I've had suspicions for about 2 months, little things that didn't add up, so I hired a private investigator, not a cheap one either, a really good one, the kind who does this professionally for divorce attorneys. Her face went even paler if that was possible. That recording is from your lunch date with your boyfriend 3 weeks ago at that Italian restaurant downtown, the one you told me was a work lunch with your boss. The investigator had audio recording equipment, got the whole conversation. This isn't even the most interesting one, honestly. There are others, lots of others. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo album I'd created specifically for this. There are also pictures, dated and time-stamped, you leaving hotels with him, getting into his car, kissing him in parking lots, all documented, all admissible in court. She collapsed back onto the couch. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to be sure, I said, and I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with. Turns out I was dealing with someone who wasn't just cheating, but was actively planning to financially destroy me. The recordings make that pretty clear, especially the ones where you and he discuss how to maximize what you'd get in a divorce. I never meant, you meant every word, I interrupted. And you know how I know? Because you said it sober, multiple times, across multiple conversations, to multiple people, not just to him. To your friend from work, too. Remember that happy hour 2 weeks ago? The investigator was at the bar. Got that conversation, too. The one where you called me your safety net and your meal ticket. She started crying again, but this time it felt different. Not genuine sadness, more like panic, cornered animal panic. So here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice still calm. You're going to move out, this weekend. I don't care where you go. Your boyfriend's place, your parents, a hotel. Not my problem. You're going to take only your personal belongings, clothes, toiletries, the jewelry that was actually yours before we got married. Everything else stays. You can't kick me out of my own house. Our house, I corrected. And actually, I can. See, while you were busy planning your exit strategy, I was building mine. I've already filed for divorce. Papers were filed this morning. You'll be served tomorrow at work, by the way. Hope your coworkers don't make a big deal out of it. Her eyes went wide. This morning? This morning, I confirmed, before you got home and dropped your little bomb, which, by the way, I already knew about. You're about as subtle as a train wreck. I've been tracking your pharmacy visits, your doctor's appointments, all of it. The investigator is very thorough. This is insane, she said. You're being insane. No, I'm being practical. Isn't that what you called yourself? Practical? I leaned forward. Here's the practical reality. I have documentation of extensive infidelity. I have recordings of you discussing asset concealment and financial manipulation. I have proof that you've already been moving money out of our joint accounts, which, by the way, is illegal during a marriage in this state without disclosure. I have everything I need to not only get this divorce pushed through fast, but to make sure you don't get a single penny you're not legally entitled to. And given your conduct, that's not going to be much. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out a folder from beside the couch. I'd planted it there this morning, anticipating this moment. Here's the petition for divorce. Here's the evidence log. Here's a list of assets and their current values. Here's documentation of the money you've moved, $63,000 over the past 6 months, by the way, into an account you thought I didn't know about. Here's a statement from my attorney. And here's my favorite part. A restraining order preventing you from accessing, moving, or liquidating any joint assets as of this morning. I spread the papers out on the coffee table like a dealer laying down a winning hand. She looked at them, then at me, then back at the papers. Who are you? I don't even recognize you. Funny, I said. I was thinking the same thing about you, but I think the difference is you're seeing the real me for the first time, the one who isn't going to be your doormat, the one who's been watching and learning while you thought you were so clever. What about the baby? She asked, her voice small. What about it? It's not mine. You made that very clear. That's your situation to handle, with your boyfriend, who, by the way, is also married with 2 kids. Did you know that? No? Yeah, the investigator found that out too. His wife might be interested to know what he's been up to. I have her contact information if you'd like it. She looked like she might throw up. You wouldn't. I haven't decided yet. Depends on how cooperative everyone is during the divorce proceedings. This is blackmail. No, this is consequence, I said. You made choices. Now you get to live with them. I'm just making sure I don't get destroyed in the process. She sat there for a long moment, and I could see her mind working, trying to find an angle, a way out, something to grab onto. But there wasn't anything. I'd spent 2 months making sure of that. I need time to process this, she finally said. You have until Sunday night to be out. That's 3 days. More than generous, considering. Where am I supposed to go? Again, not my problem. But if I were you, I'd call your boyfriend, or your parents, or that friend you were trash-talking me to. Someone must have a couch you can crash on. She stood up slowly, like she'd aged 20 years in the past 30 minutes. I really did love you, you know. At some point I did. Maybe, I said. But you loved what I could provide more. And when that wasn't enough, when you wanted more excitement, or whatever it was you were looking for, you decided to have both, the stability and the affair. Well, now you get to have neither. She picked up her purse from where she'd dropped it earlier. I need to get some things from the bedroom. Go ahead, just your personal items. I'll be watching. She walked toward the stairs, stopped, turned back. Can I ask you something? What? When did you know? When did you really know? I thought about it. The night you came home at 2 a.m. and told me you'd been at a work emergency. You were wearing different underwear than you'd left in that morning. I do the laundry. I notice things like that. That was about 10 weeks ago. Everything after that was just confirmation. She closed her eyes. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. She didn't argue with that. She just went upstairs. I sat there in the living room, listening to her move around in our bedroom, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not vindication, just this vast, empty nothing. 7 years of my life with someone who'd seen me as a resource to be managed rather than a partner to be loved. 7 years of trust that had been shredded in the most calculating, cold way possible. My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney. How did it go? I typed back. Exactly as planned. She'll be out by Sunday. Good. Don't engage with her more than necessary. All communication should go through me from this point forward. Understood. She came back downstairs 20 minutes later with a suitcase and a duffel bag. I'm going to my sister's tonight. I'll come back this weekend for more of my things. Text me before you come. I'll make sure I'm here. She nodded, started to say something, stopped. Then she just left. I heard her car start, back out of the driveway, disappear down the street. I sat there for another hour, not moving, not thinking, just existing in the quiet of the house. Then I got up, went back to the kitchen, and finished making dinner. The chicken was cold now, ruined, so I threw it out and ordered pizza instead. I ate it on the couch while watching a movie I'd wanted to see that she'd always said looked stupid. It was actually pretty good. The next few weeks were a blur of attorneys, paperwork, and strategic silence. True to my word, I had her served at work. According to my investigator, yes, I kept him on retainer, it caused quite a scene. Her boss pulled her into a private office afterward, and she was out for the rest of the day. Apparently, people had suspected something was going on between her and her co-worker boyfriend, but it was all gossip until the divorce papers made it real. Her boyfriend's wife found out 3 days after that. I didn't tell her directly, but I may have left some information where it could be easily discovered. His wife filed for divorce the following week. Suddenly, my ex and her boyfriend were both facing the destruction of their marriages, and according to mutual friends who still talk to me, they weren't handling it well. Apparently, what seemed exciting and romantic as an affair became significantly less appealing when it was their only option. My ex tried to call me 17 times in the first week. I didn't answer. She sent texts, long rambling ones about how we should talk, how I was being unreasonable, how she deserved a chance to explain. I forwarded them all to my attorney without responding. On day 9, she tried to come to the house when I was at work. She still had a key I hadn't gotten around to changing yet. Big mistake on my part. She let herself in and tried to take some items I'd specifically listed as joint property that was staying with the house. Some expensive kitchen equipment, a television, some artwork we'd bought together. Unfortunately for her, I'd had security cameras installed the day after she moved out. I had footage of her taking things. My attorney sent a cease and desist letter by the end of the day, along with a reminder that she was violating the restraining order on assets. She had to return everything. The baby situation resolved itself in the worst way possible about 6 weeks after she moved out. She had a miscarriage. I only knew because her sister called me. We'd always gotten along. To tell me, not because she thought I'd care about the baby, but because my ex was in a very bad place mentally, and she was worried. I appreciated the call, but made it clear that my ex's well-being wasn't my responsibility anymore. Her sister understood. She actually apologized to me for what her sister had done, said she'd never approved of the affair, had tried to talk her out of it multiple times. I believed her. As for my ex's emotional state after the miscarriage, I felt bad for her in an abstract way. A miscarriage is traumatic regardless of the circumstances. but I also couldn't bring myself to feel too much sympathy. She'd been willing to use that pregnancy as leverage against me, had been prepared to either force me to raise another man's child or use it to maximize her divorce settlement. The situation was tragic, but my sympathy had limits. The boyfriend cut contact with her pretty much immediately after the miscarriage. Apparently, without the baby tying them together and with both of their lives falling apart, the relationship couldn't survive. He got back together with his wife for a brief period. They tried counseling, but it didn't last. They were divorced within 6 months. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state for work and was living alone. My ex spiraled for a while. She'd been put on a performance improvement plan at work after the affair became public knowledge. Sleeping with a coworker and causing that much drama reflected poorly on both of them professionally. She ended up quitting before they could fire her. She moved in with her parents, which I know must have killed her pride. Her parents were traditional religious people who'd been deeply disappointed by her choices. Living under their roof, under their judgment, couldn't have been easy. The divorce itself took about 4 months to finalize. In the end, she got barely anything. The house was in both our names, but I'd put down the entire down payment from an inheritance from my grandfather before we got married. My attorney argued successfully that I should be able to buy her out at a significantly reduced rate given her conduct and the money she'd already stolen from our joint accounts. She had to return the $63,000 she'd moved, plus interest. After attorney fees, she walked away with maybe $20,000 in her car. Everything else, retirement accounts, investment portfolios, even the furniture, was mine. Turns out, when you can prove financial infidelity alongside regular infidelity, judges aren't very sympathetic. I got a message from her about 3 months after the divorce was final. She'd been silent for weeks at that point, and I'd assumed she'd moved on with her life. But then, out of nowhere, a long email. It was an apology, a real one, or at least it seemed real. She said she'd been in therapy, was working on herself, was trying to understand why she'd made the choices she made. She acknowledged the pain she'd caused, said she didn't expect forgiveness, but wanted me to know she recognized how badly she'd hurt me. She said the person she'd been during our last year of marriage wasn't who she wanted to be, that she'd gotten lost somewhere along the way, started valuing the wrong things. She took full responsibility for the affair, for the lying, for trying to manipulate me into staying. She said she understood now how toxic that was, how unforgivable. The email ended with her saying she hoped I'd find happiness with someone who deserved me, someone who would treat me the way I'd deserved to be treated all along. She said she'd never contact me again, that this was her closure, her final goodbye. I read it 3 times, then I deleted it. Not because I was angry anymore. I wasn't. But because she was right. It was closure, and I didn't need to carry it with me. Whatever journey she was on, whatever healing she was doing, it wasn't my concern anymore. I'd spent enough of my life orbiting around her needs, her wants, her emotional landscape. I was done. 6 months after the divorce, I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just casual coffee dates, dinners, getting to know people without pressure. It felt strange after being with someone for so long, but also freeing. I wasn't looking for a replacement or trying to fill a void. I was just open to connection if it happened naturally. I met someone eventually, a woman who worked in a completely different field, who had her own life, her own friends, her own goals. We took things slow. I was honest about my past, about the divorce, about my trust issues. She was patient. She didn't try to fix me or prove she was different. She just was who she was, and she let me be who I was. And somehow, that was enough. The house felt different with someone new in it. Lighter, less haunted by memories of betrayal. We repainted the bedroom, bought new furniture, made new memories on top of the old ones. I thought about selling it sometimes, starting completely fresh somewhere else, but decided against it. This was my home. I'd earned it. Why should I be the one to leave? I ran into my ex once, about a year after everything ended. It was at a coffee shop downtown. I was with my girlfriend. My ex was alone. We made eye contact. She looked different, thinner, older maybe, or just worn down. She gave me a small nod, almost apologetic, and looked away. I nodded back and went back to my conversation. My girlfriend asked later if that was her, and when I confirmed it, she just squeezed my hand and changed the subject. That was it. No drama, no confrontation, just two people who used to know each other existing in the same space for 30 seconds and then moving on. I heard through mutual friends that she eventually moved to a different city, got a new job, was dating someone new. I hoped it worked out for her, genuinely. Not because I forgave her, or because I wanted her back in any capacity, but because holding on to anger was exhausting, and I was tired of giving her space in my head. She'd taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her have my peace too. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it, if I think I was too harsh, too calculating, too cold. The answer is no. I don't regret it for a second. She came to me with a plan to use me, to manipulate me, to take advantage of my love and turn it into a weapon against myself. She wanted me to be her safety net while she pursued whatever excitement she thought she deserved. She wanted me to pay for her mistakes, literally and figuratively. Instead, I protected myself. I gathered evidence, built a case, and made sure that when everything fell apart, I wasn't the one left holding the pieces. Was it cold? Maybe. Was it calculating? Absolutely. But it was also necessary. Because the alternative was letting myself be destroyed by someone who'd already proven they had no problem watching me suffer as long as they got what they wanted. I learned a lot from that relationship. I learned that trust, once broken, can't be forced back together. I learned that sometimes the person you love most is capable of hurting you worst. I learned that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, and that protecting yourself isn't the same as being cruel. I learned that when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them, not the version they present when they want something from you, but the version that emerges when they think you're not paying attention. Most importantly, I learned that I deserved better, that I deserved someone who saw me as a partner, not a resource, someone who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide, someone who, when faced with challenges or temptation, would choose our relationship over their own immediate gratification. The recording I played for my ex that night wasn't about revenge, though I'm sure it felt that way to her. It was about clarity. It was about making sure there was no ambiguity, no room for manipulation, no space for her to twist the narrative or make me doubt what I knew to be true. She needed to hear her own words, her own calculations, her own cold assessment of our marriage. She needed to understand that I knew exactly who she was and what she'd done. And when she sat there, frozen, listening to herself discuss me like a mark to be conned, I think she finally understood. Not just that I knew, but that it was over. Really, truly over. That there was no talking her way out of it, no crying her way back, no manipulation that would work. The game was done, and she'd lost. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never found out. If I'd been less observant, less willing to investigate my suspicions. Would she have gone through with her plan? Would I have spent years raising a child that wasn't mine, funding a life she was building with someone else, all while thinking I was in a real marriage? Probably. The recordings made it clear that was exactly what she was planning. And that thought, more than anything else, validates every decision I made. There's a strange kind of strength that comes from surviving betrayal. Not just surviving it, but coming out the other side intact. Stronger maybe, definitely wiser. I'm not grateful for what happened. I wouldn't wish that kind of pain on anyone. But I am grateful for what I learned about myself. That I was capable of being ruthless when necessary. That I could put emotion aside and think strategically when my future was on the line. that I had more self-respect than I'd ever had to prove before. I'm in a good place now. Better than good, actually. I have a relationship built on honesty and mutual respect. I have a home that feels like mine again. I have friends who stood by me through everything and proved their loyalty. I have a life that isn't overshadowed by lies and manipulation. I have peace. And my ex? She has whatever life she's built for herself now. I hope she learned from her mistakes. I hope she treats her next partner better than she treated me. I hope she found whatever it was she was looking for when she decided I wasn't enough. But honestly, I don't think about it much anymore. She's not my problem, not my concern, not my responsibility. She's just someone I used to know, someone I used to love, someone who taught me, in the hardest way possible, exactly what I don't want and won't accept in my life. And that lesson, as painful as it was to learn, turned out to be the most valuable thing she ever gave me.